Welcome everyone to our real estate investor workshop. Today we'll be discussing the new real estate investor experience with special guest Aaron Neville. Let me just start sharing the screen here. Okay. All right, so now I think you should be seeing the slides. So my name is Michael Matthew. I've been a professional accountant for more than 30 years. My international practice is increasingly focused on real estate and real estate investors. I'm also a CFO for a local home builder. I own a condo in the Toronto area. I'm currently looking for small apartments in the US, starting with Texas. I provide entity structuring services, which means setting up your corporations both in Canada and the US, operational and tax consulting and planning, and tax return preparation for both Canadian and US returns. Keep my lawyer happy. There's a brief disclaimer. None of the information provided in this presentation or provided through this presentation is given as tax, accounting, or legal advice, and it shall not be relied upon as such. None of the materials are to be construed as a solicitation, recommendation, or offer to buy or sell any security, product, property, or instrument. And finally, while I do my best to keep this information as up to date as possible, a court case could come out tomorrow. The government could pass a new law tomorrow, which will change things. So please do consult with your advisors before making any real estate purchases. If you have questions, we'll deal with those at the end of the presentation. For now, please just put them in the chat so you won't forget them. And as I said, we'll go through all of them at the end. If you have more detailed questions, feel free to reach out to me by email, the address shown, to arrange a private consultation. And we'll set up something that works for both of us. Our next event will be September 29th, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we'll have someone speaking on the importance of mindset with special guest speaker Cal Ewing. And this may seem a little bit foreign to some of you that thought this is all about real estate, but it's been my experience that without the proper mindset, you could attend trainings like this every week for the next 10 years, and you still won't be nearly as successful as you would be if you got your mindset to what it needed to be. So Cal's going to talk about that. So I think it's a very important topic. So at this point, please grab a pen and some paper or open a document on your computer and please take some notes. So at this point, I'm going to stop the screen share. And we're going to invite Aaron on. Aaron's a relatively new investor, and I thought it would be useful to have someone speak from that perspective. And he may just be a little bit ahead of you in your real estate journey. So Aaron, thanks for joining us. Okay.
Thanks,
Why don't you start just by explaining a little bit about what your background is, and we'll go from there.
I'm a registered nurse. I'm in just outside of London, St. Thomas, Ontario. And I've been nursing for about 20 years, 19 years now, I guess. Did a lot of traveling prior to that. And during that, I worked in out west, across Canada as a nurse, and then in Australia and New Zealand. And moved back to this area once we had our daughter was born. Actually, she was born in Australia, and then we moved back here when she was a couple of years old. And yeah, just doing that. And then I was always interested in real estate, just knowing the power of real estate and that investment. And I was mostly interested in buy and hold properties. And we just acquired our first property only just about 3 years ago in Sarnia. And at that time, I guess it was, yeah, almost 3 years ago. And then, as everyone probably knows, with the appreciation and the house prices, it's the numbers just weren't making as much sense to me when I was looking and running my numbers as far as rentals and getting any kind of cash flow or anything like that. And I didn't really know.
Yeah, let me just stop you right there. That's an important point about the rents, because as you quite correctly pointed out, the property prices have increased dramatically, especially around some of the larger cities like Toronto, Vancouver. But what has not appreciated at the same rate is rents, which when you're saying you couldn't get the numbers to work, what Aaron's getting at is that the purchase price was so high relative to the low rents that many places you'd be lucky to break even. And the closer the GTA you get, the more likely you'd be cash flow negative because the rents aren't high enough to support carrying the mortgage on those high value properties. So just please continue.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for explaining that. Yeah, like you said, the numbers just didn't make sense, or at least when we ended up actually going out of our area as well, because even London had appreciated quite a bit, and I wasn't finding properties there. We bought our first one in Sarnia, Ontario, and that's it turned out to be a good property, and we've had that we're just renting that right now. Looking at short-term rental options as well, like Airbnb.
Right.
Our lease is coming up, so I'm looking into that as well. It's in a pretty good area as far as close to a hospital. And I've looked at they have that AirDNA now and a few other sites where you can get what the
Right.
short-term rental rates would be. And it looks like it might be a possibility. And then just with that first property, and like I said, looking around, and then I was looking in the US, and that's where I ended up meeting Michael, was through Mike Wolf Mastery Course. I joined that to get some coaching and mentorship, and just to be in rooms with other people doing the same thing at a high level. I was kind of pretty nervous because I was new and I knew I'd be around some pretty experienced investors, but that's been really beneficial, is just getting in rooms with people that know more than me, which at that time was pretty much all of them. So, and then many of them had 20, 30 years, like Mike Wolf has, I think, 31 years investing in Canada and then in the US. So that was just a great experience. And I started down that road of investing in the US.
Okay, so I just put in the website that Aaron mentioned called airdna.co. So what you're used to, but no M on the end, just .co. And that gives you an idea of what the short-term rental rates would be in the area that you're looking at to pick up a property, because obviously if you're going to buy one and target Airbnb or VRBO, which is vacation rental by owner, you want to have an idea that you can actually make money doing so. So that is a key part of that. Now, so you got started about 3 years ago, you said, Aaron, but you're still working full time, is that right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
So how do you manage to find properties while working so much in such a demanding profession? I think most people would just be exhausted by the time they get off a shift like that.
It can be, but it's the one thing is I have found is with it is 12-hour shifts that we work. So that day is pretty much a write-off, but then I get quite a few more days off that way. So I'll have a couple of days on and a few days off. So in those few days off, I've been just trying to learn as much as I can. I've just become really obsessed with trying to learn as much as I can about it, and then putting it to work. Have found recently just taking a lot of different courses, and um, just need to, for myself anyway, make sure that I'm applying what I'm learning. Because like you said, I think at the beginning you can come to a lot of webinars and join a lot of events and learn everything, but if you don't put that knowledge to use, then it's gonna.
Yeah, I think the common expression is knowledge is power, but the more refined version is applied knowledge is power. And that's essentially what you're getting at. Yes, it's good to know a lot of these things, but you have to take action. And that's what I admire about you is you didn't start blindly, but you got some education and you're getting some real practical education by doing deals. So that's ultimately how you learn things, because just from my own perspective doing taxes, you can read a commentary on some new tax law and you sort of understand it, at least if you're an accountant at a high level, but it never tells you how you fill out the damn forms. So until you actually have to translate the actual laws into the form that you're stuck with, you never really know exactly how to do it. So it's fills in all the gaps, I suppose, by actually having to do it.
Right. Yeah, it did make a big difference for sure.
Now, have you been looking at single family homes so far? Is that what you've been focusing on?
Mostly, yeah. And that's what I've been doing some wholesaling and looking at buy and hold right now. And I'm really interested in multifamily, but I just haven't gotten that knowledge up to where I want yet. But
Okay, now how are you finding these deals?
well, one course I took was that wholesale challenge in Mike Wolf's group. That's something I knew of wholesaling, but I never planned on doing any of it, to be honest. When I took that course, though, I found it was a great way to find off-market properties, and with the plan to buy and hold myself. And so I'm just starting to do that part now, actively looking for properties to hold. And most of them I've just wholesaled all of them so far. And yeah, like I said, now a lot of them were in areas that I didn't want to hold because the marketing I was doing mostly Facebook paid ads. And then
Right.
through my Facebook group, you could get a lot of leads through that. I started up a Facebook group in Kansas City. I think it has almost 2,000 members now.
Wow.
So it
A lot.
was, yeah, it was great just to learn the market. It was so helpful because I wasn't even on Facebook. So I had to, I think I had an account, but I had birthday messages from like a couple
Years ago, probably. Yeah, me too. I am in so many Facebook groups. By the time I get around to actually checking my page, my personal stuff, it's like 8 months have gone
yeah.
by.
It was a great way to network though in those real estate groups, and just finding lawyers there, finding the different investor friendly title companies to contractors, like everything that you need for a team there, especially virtually. And
So did you just literally ask, does anyone know a good whatever in Kansas City area? Is that the sort of thing? You just posted something like that and you got responses?
yeah, I did at first, and then after a while, just building those relationships, then it was just a lot easier. It was just
Yeah, so what Aaron is getting at there is if you get one key contact, for instance, a real estate agent, they often know investor friendly banks in the area because they have a lot of clients asking, okay, I like to buy that house. Who's a good bank in your area to work with? Right. And the banks know appraisers. And so you can sort of daisy chain these contacts along. If you get one good contact, maybe even a property manager, well, the property manager is going to know who are the reliable plumbers and electricians you need to call in to do repairs. And the first, I think it's referee will give you a referral to the next one, to the next, and to the next. So yeah, that works as well.
Yeah, that worked really well for sure.
So now you said you were doing wholesaling, so you put the property under contract, but you actually sell the deal before it closes. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, you put the property under contract. And that was all new to me as well. And so there were certain criteria that we would put on there for closing dates and inspection periods and clauses that you could get out of the contract if you don't find another buyer. Just today we closed on one, so that was great. Actually, I hadn't closed on one in a few weeks now. So
Do you have any pictures you could show us of either this deal or other deals?
I've just got a couple of the brochures that I
Okay, sure.
use once I get them and put them in this brochure. But
Yeah, just go ahead and share your screen. I think it'd be useful for people to see those.
this was the one that I had it under contract from, I think, under August the 5th, and the guy just purchased it today. So we just sent off. So there's a purchase contract that I have with the seller,
Right.
and I had 30 days on the contract to try and find a buyer. I found a buyer. So then we just sent off an assignment contract, because you're assigning that contract to the new buyer. And he's depositing like 5,000 into for his earnest money deposit,
Right.
non-refundable. And so it should close pretty soon. And then I just have a specific title company that I've been working with. So that makes it easier as well. I have a relationship with them now.
Of course. Yeah.
It's a lot easier that way. Actually, some of the title companies, the one that I had used before, I did call today, and they're not doing any of these assignment of contracts anymore, or double closing. So some of it, I'm not sure exactly
That's
why, but
interesting. So
yes.
they don't even want to participate in a double close.
No, I thought they did at first. I thought it was just the assignment that they were going to be getting rid of. And
Right.
the lady on the phone today said, no, it was even a double close. So,
And the double close is where you actually own the property, but perhaps it's for as little as a few minutes. And then you immediately have a buyer lined up. So it's two separate contracts. So that's in the rare case, you actually do take possession of this property and then you immediately sell it. So that's what's called a double close.
right. And I haven't done those actually myself, only because they're a bit more costly, because you got to pay double the closing costs. As you can see, this property is nothing special. It's actually in probably a C- area, but it's the price of it is, we got it for 70,000, and then my assignment fee was 10,000, so 80,000, and the year after repair value would be 120,000, and the rents on this one, it's currently rented for, I think, 795, and it should be market rents, I believe, are 1,100 for it.
Wow. Yeah. So that's quite a good uptick if you're looking at
And our bottom of it here, we just,
$3,600 a year more income just bringing it up to market.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
give the estimated projections, and then if they financed it at 75%, or if they financed it at 80%, then just the steps to purchase. And we just have that in there as a brochure that I send out once we got it under contract to, we built up a investors list and people buying and just send it out to them.
Again, that would have been through Facebook. Is that how you got your initial list going?
Through Facebook and then also through PropStream as well, which is a software that you're familiar with, I think, Michael. But
Yeah, PropStream, it only really works in the States, but you can pull lists with all sorts of criteria. So for instance, a popular one would be out of state owned properties, right? And you could specify the price range, specify if you want a single family or a multifamily. There's many, many
Yep.
different criteria. So effectively, you're creating your own lists from their database. And they have
find out a
information
lot.
about the property itself, and there's other additional resources out there, like First AM, I think is the name it's now, which gives background information on every property essentially in the US, including the recent purchase prices. So you usually get 2 or 3 transactions. Sometimes they'll even pull up the deed and sometimes even the mortgage. So there's lots of information out there available through these various databases.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. I know that was one of the factors that I had looked into when I was thinking about investing in the US was that price point, obviously the 80K, but also they have the Freedom of Information Act rather than the Privacy of Information Act. So you're able to get all that information, like even through PropStream and like you said, different things. You can find out what they owe on their mortgage, if it's paid off, if it's not. You can find out all the people that have bought properties for cash in the last whatever you want to put in 6 months. So it was really helpful to build up that buyers list. This was the very first one. And it turned out, so it was just a small little bungalow, 2 bed, 1 bath, but it was, I got it for 35,000 and then assigned it for 50,000. And the after repair value, I think was 130.
Okay, well, you're just going through that. I'm going to put an address in the chat. So this gets you a 7-day free trial of the software. And this is the PropStream software for US real estate.
Yeah, I started out with that free trial and then jumped up. I think it's $99 a month.
Right.
But that property as well was a great property for me as far as a contact because my main kind of boots on the ground person there now is a realtor. The younger guy is in his 20s. He's buying quite a few properties, and he bought this one off of me. And turned out after that, just he goes and checks out all the properties. He'll take pictures. He's just been really helpful, and I guess it makes it a win-win for him because he can get, if he has a property, he gets first to see it first. And he's, like I said, he's buying like probably a couple properties a month right now. Not from me, but
Right. All right. And I also put in the other one I mentioned, my first AM. You have to there's a form that you fill out on the site and ask that an account be set up. Sometimes it takes a little patience. I did it, nothing happened. I did it a second time. I got a phone call and said, I'm looking for properties. And you say whichever area you're looking at, and they'll set up an account. The account is free, and you can get quite a bit of information on properties, particularly in the larger cities. Sometimes it's less available in some of the more rural areas, but anything in a city, you're going to get who owns it, what they paid for it, who they bought it from, what they sold it for previously. And as I said, sometimes you can even get the deed and the mortgage, like the literal original mortgage. You won't know how much they owe on it necessarily, but you will get how much they borrowed initially. So it's kind of shocking to most Canadians, the information that's publicly available at little to no cost. Okay, so
Yeah, I haven't used that one actually, that My First AM. I'll have to look that up.
yeah, well, you should. I use it quite a bit in some other work I was doing regarding overages, and I found it very, very useful site. So, all right, so you just cancel your screen share
Oh,
there.
yeah. Mm,
Okay, we're back. So, what challenges have you faced with your real estate investment career here?
I guess the biggest thing, or well, just getting that team together and the boots on the ground there to literally do everything. At first, I was I was thinking, what am I doing now? 'Cause I literally had to get people to get out to the property and try and get pictures. And now it's just, it's not so difficult at all because I have a team in place. And if I can't get pictures, then I'll get the owner to get pictures. But and at first, again, I was just like, how am I going to get all this stuff
How
done?
did you get pictures at first? Before you had
Uh,
someone, the first one, you had to find someone somewhere, so.
Yeah, it was the owner took pictures of the first one, and then literally
Okay,
first that other one that I had up there where the realtor that bought it, he actually said, well, I'll go take pictures for you. I'll just say I'm your partner. And then he ended up saying that he wanted it anyway. And then after that, he's just been kind of the boots on the ground.
yeah, so that's
From there.
the experience of many investors I talk to. If you have a good experience with someone doing any of these various tasks that you need done, you should look elsewhere. You should work with them again, because it's a lot easier to keep one person motivated if they're working on a deal every couple of weeks or every month with you, as opposed to every 6 months, right? By it shows that you're serious and that you value their assistance, and they'll be much more willing to perhaps do a little bit extra for you, because they know, hey, he keeps feeding me more and more deals. I get more and more work to do on the side here, which helps me out as well. So it's for the same reason I have a website builder in India I've never met, never will meet, but I keep going to him because he does reliable work and he's very responsive. So
Yeah.
now you're doing all this from home, right? You're not actually going to these places, or how are you going to these places?
No, I haven't been to any of them. And with that whole COVID, obviously, I wasn't able to even, now I would be able to, but I haven't gone to any of the properties yet. And, but I will be, I'm planning on, once I get a couple, especially if I stay in the Kansas City area, I'll go down and meet some of the people that I've been for the last year virtually.
Yeah,
Just go for a vacation, check it out. But it was, yeah, just virtually. And like you said, some of the challenges, I guess, with, you wouldn't have those, I guess, with buy and hold, or if you're doing flips, but with the wholesaling, you're getting it under contract and it's pretty competitive and not everyone's honest, I guess. And they try and go around you. So I have lost a couple properties that way, where people kind of went around and just, it was a learning experience for me. But
yeah. So you can take steps to prevent that, but if someone's determined to be dishonest in the deal, I don't care how many documents they've signed, it won't matter.
no,
They'll just say, okay,
Yeah,
I said I wouldn't do that, but I did. So what? Sue me,
yeah,
right?
that's right. That's the
So,
thing. So it's kind of more expensive. I guess I could have put a lien or a,
Mm.
what's the other word for it? Like a memorandum on it.
yeah, a caveat of some sort, I think.
Yeah, in the contract, you could have that. And then I guess what it would do, or I don't guess, I get, it would like cloud the title, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, it would
Once
cloud the
they go
title
to,
and the title company. Now, this is a bit different in the States because the title companies take a much more active role in the closing of properties. Here we have title insurance, certainly in Ontario, but in Ontario, every closing has to be done by a lawyer. In the States, it varies from state to state. Most of them have either closings done only by an attorney or closings only done by a title company. Some, of course, decide to mix together both just to confuse everybody. But for the most part, I'd say 40 plus states, it's one or the other. And so, depending on what state it is, when they go to process the sale, the seller's attorney will say, oh, hold on a second. You can't transfer title because someone else has an interest in this property. And that interest has to be satisfied before the property can change hands. And the common example of that is simply a mortgage holder, right? You can't sell your property with a mortgage on it without paying off the mortgage holder. The deal will not close without that. And that's why those of you who have sold your property know that you have to sign directions with your lawyer to pay off the mortgage before you see any money coming to you on the sale. So yeah, that's something that is a little bit different in the States, but ultimately it does come down to the same thing. You can't have any obstructions on title or the property can't change hands.
right. So I could have did that, I guess. And then one of the lawyers, like you alluded to earlier, you'll get a different answer from all of them. And one of those that I talked to said, well, then I could actually get in trouble if I wasn't able to prove or it wasn't in the initial contract about a memorandum, then I could be charged with, or legally with interfering with the title, I guess. I can't remember what legal words he used. It was with, yeah, interfering with that.
I think the moral of the story is you improve your paperwork as you go. You get everything signed at the start, no documents to follow. So it's all part of the phrase they'll use is the entire agreement. And they'll say that if it's not attached to this document, it doesn't exist. It never happened.
Mhm.
So it has to be part of that initial package. And I think the way to get around that as much as you can is ask people for referrals, even if it's just somebody in the Facebook group that you either, in Aaron's case, he was smart enough to start, or you just joined one in the area you're looking at and say, who's a reliable boots on the ground to go take pictures of the property, or who's a reliable whomever. And you start getting 2 or 3 or 4 people recommend the same person, chances are pretty good that that's a reliable person.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and that's how I kind of just grew the boots on the ground from there, even with contractors, and I would get that out there, and then, like you said, either in the group or and then individually after you got to know people, and their name came up a few times, so it was like, well, I might as well contact them. They seem pretty. Everyone says that they're reliable, and so just kind of reach out to them and go from there. And the property management will be a big thing, especially with the buy and hold property.
right, yeah, a good property manager can make your property worth even more because they will screen your tenants better, which means you get typically a higher quality tenant. They'll keep it well maintained, which means you can increase the rents. and they'll basically protect your investment, because I think you said you bought one house for $70,000. Well, to me, that's a pretty substantial investment. You want it looked after, right? And especially if you're going to be holding on to it indefinitely, you want it to be very well looked after, because that's what preserves the value and in fact will increase it. The last thing you want is a poor property manager. And you also have to follow the old Russian proverb that Ronald Reagan was famous for making it well known, which is trust but verify.
Right.
So you need to be particularly attentive to following up with them initially, and essentially bother them so much that they know that they're being looked at, right? So as I said, I'm a CFO, and I ask questions about invoices because I sign all the checks. I'm asking the property VP, and I do that in part just so he knows I'm watching the invoices, right? I'm just not just blindly signing anything he puts in front of me to sign. And so it's just a very subtle way. Hey, I'm watching, something's going on around here. I'm going to see it. And same thing with a property manager or whomever. You basically have to manage the manager, I guess, is what you say. And you get a good one, boy, can that really be useful, particularly Aaron, you're seem to be looking in a very similar area for the next investment. Most likely you could use the very same property manager, right? Once you start getting multiple buy and holds,
Yeah.
you concentrate on one area. And I think that's the important thing for people to realize. It takes a lot more effort to do one property in Texas, and then one property in Florida, and then one property in North Carolina, and then one property in Georgia. Find an area you like, work it, and keep going until the numbers shift, right? That would be the only reason to leave the area, is the property values outstrip the rental rates and their ability to make the properties cash flow. Because if that area is working for you, I think it makes a lot of sense to keep going back to Kansas City, use the same property manager, the same tradespeople, the same appraisers, the same bank, the same everything.
And I
Often
didn't
use
realize,
the same partners investing in it, right? So
and I didn't realize how much the property managers can and do for you, as far as they can arrange and oversee renovation. Um, they have, a lot of them have their real estate license, so they can give you comps on properties. You can obviously use them for rental rates, which is usually,
yeah, I think that's a really
thought
good
that would be the
point,
biggest.
because I don't know that too many property managers in Canada are real estate
No,
agents. In fact, I've never heard of it.
no, I didn't either. I didn't know until, and then I was reached out, and I'll, I would say the majority that I talked to, that I was referred to, are real estate agents. And they, like I said, they'll do the whole, you want to get a good one, obviously, if they're going to be overseeing your whole renovation, but some of them will do light to moderate renovations. The one I'm talking to now, I don't want to do any full rehabs anyways, but they will do full rehabs, or oversee it and refer us to tradespeople, and they know all of them.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, because we all, I'm sure, have heard of horror stories about general contractors that come in, they take these huge deposits and disappear. Well, your property manager is not going to do that, because you're giving him business for years to come. They're going to make sure that they oversee your renovations, even if they're not doing it themselves, they'll oversee it properly, because they have a very strong financial incentive to keep you happy. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, he said he would get once we get going, I'm having him look at one tomorrow. He said he'll get pictures for me, and if it does proceed as far as overseeing the renovation, he'll get pictures and walkthroughs at least on a weekly basis or more.
Yeah, that's
Oversee it all.
obviously very, very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't realize that they did all.
Yeah, well, nor did I, as I said, because I didn't know they were real estate agents as well.
Right.
I think some of them, they go out of their way to get a real estate agent into their company just so they can do these sorts of deals.
Right. And the other thing with them too is in the US, well, here too, obviously there's bad areas. But a lot of the cities in the US, it could just be like literally a street over, and it's the property value can drop and be a lot different in the whole neighborhood and appreciation and everything else. Because what I'm looking at tomorrow is in kind of a area I didn't think I'd want to. It's kind of like a C area. But anyway, the property manager, the realtor that I know, and another realtor all said that that one is actually still in a good area. So let's see what
Yeah,
happens with it. So, but that's helpful because it's like 2 blocks over. It's they would stay away.
that's very helpful, right? If your property manager says there's no way I'm going there to collect the rent, it's probably not a place, or if I do, I'm not getting out of the car. It's probably not a place you want to invest in the first place.
That's right.
All right, so did you have anything else you wanted to add at this point, or advice for people who are perhaps just starting to get their first property?
Um, I guess anyone starting out, mentorship, whether it's paid or not, or coaching, has been huge for myself anyway. We we did get a mentor here, and our very first property, the one that we bought in Sarnia, was everything that could go wrong seemed to go wrong. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today because I would have quit if I wouldn't have had somebody even if it's not a mentor or a coach, going to the Unreal, like the Ontario real estate events and the networking groups, just to be around people that are doing it. Because the very first, like I said, the broker, that got all messed up and we had to get a bridge loan for the time period. And then the contractor on the very first one was referred to me by a friend of another, and that turned out to be a complete nightmare. And the very first tenant, we had to pay her to leave. So it was a bit of I would have.
That hurts. That hurts. I had a tenant I had to kick out, and I was extremely stubborn, perhaps to my financial detriment. I said, I'm not paying for you to leave.
Yeah.
So I did my moral suasion best, because you can't force them out unless you're moving in or your family's moving in, or you're basically doing a stripper to the studs type rental. You can't kick them out. So I had to sort of cajole, and it took a couple of months, but eventually they moved out. So
Yeah, and this one was she had been in trouble before. I had a property or the realtor screen it because it was out of town. It's only an hour and a half away, but I didn't do any of the screening for it. I had her do it because she was
right.
with the area, and she seemed good for about 3 days. And then it went south after that. But she seemed to know all the landlord tenant laws and everything else. So it was it worked out though, and just being around other people to get through it. Like even just the loan at the beginning, it worked out. I think maybe it cost me maybe $5,000 or something in total with the loan and the lawyers, because you have to pay them again. But I probably would have just been like, okay, forget it. I'll just look for something else.
Yeah, it's amazing. I had 2 really good tenants, and I said, oh, this landlord stuff is easy.
Yeah.
And then the one I have to kick out, I'm not sure I ever want a tenant ever again.
Yeah.
But the next one, I after they left, I spent probably about close to 15,000 in upgrading, painting it literally from the floorboards up to and including the ceiling, pulling all the carpets, putting in laminate flooring, new appliances, and got a 25% bump in rent, which is pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
And no problems, even throughout the pandemic, never missed payment by a day. So there are good tenants out there, but you
Yeah.
do need a screening system. And it's fine to outsource it to someone else, but no system's perfect. And it sounds like you ran into a professional tenant that knew all the buzzwords and all the terms. And
Yeah.
thankfully, I've never met one of those personally. But
Yeah. Well, we got through it, and now, like you said, you got the one we have in there now is never missed their payments or anything. I don't even hear from her at all, or I haven't in a while. So.
okay, all right. Now, do you have anything else you want to add? I see we have a few questions in the chat we can go to.
Yeah, we can just go to the questions.
Okay, so the first one was asking about wholesale deals. Now you've done a number of wholesale deals now, right? How many?
Yeah. Probably 10 now, I think.
10 now. Okay. And so Sam
I
is
have more than
asking,
that under contract.
how did you select the area to invest in for wholesaling?
I think with wholesaling, you can pretty much wholesale anywhere, really. And that was advice I was given from coaches and mentors. So it was just more of a matter of, because I wanted to do buy and hold. So I was just trying to pick an area that had some job growth, population growth, and some diversity. And then I had another people mentioned that they had met.
And by diversity, I think you mean diversity of industries, right? So it's not
Yeah, sorry.
not a one company town.
Right.
Because if something happens to that one company, and you have to don't look very far from where we are, Detroit, essentially it's one, we'll just call it North American auto town. And when they hit a slump, I'm not sure Detroit's ever recovered. The city actually went bankrupt, because I remember seeing a news report on that. And the big debate was they had this really quite well stocked art gallery that the city owned, and the debate was, well, should we sell off all our art? Yeah. And one side, yeah, we need the money because it's going to bring in millions. The other side, yeah, but once that money's gone, we still need more, and we're all out of art. So
Yeah.
yeah, so diversified industrial base is what you're looking for. Okay.
And I had a coach that mentioned he had been in that market before. So I just decided needed to pick somewhere. So
There you go.
going with that.
And Sam also asked where you find investors. Was it through Facebook? And I think you already answered that one. That was where you at least got your initial list.
Yeah. Yeah. And then through some of the software as well.
Oh yeah, that's the software we talked about, PropStream. You can find investors and not just properties.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was able to get quite a few of them through there.
So next question was, how are you establishing the after repair value? Do you have a contractor do a walkthrough on the property to assess it?
For myself, I started out with using that software, PropStream, because you can get a lot of good data off of that. And a few others, Zillow, and they're not the most accurate, but at least I could refer to about 3 different areas. And then now that I have that realtor on my team, at first I thought I might be bothering him too much, but he didn't seem, he was like, no, just send him my way. So I just
Well, you're doing deals, right? So
yeah,
you're not a time waster. You say you invest your time, you're gonna get some money out of it. So
yeah,
that's
it's
what's
worked out great. And when I've gotten some out of the area, then I've oftentimes just gone to a realtor and just,
So basically you look at what the upgraded homes in the area are selling for or valued at, and then you say, okay, well, I'm paying less for this one, but if I fix it up to the local market standard, then you kind of have an idea of what it would sell for. Is that basically what you're saying?
yeah. And then just making sure that it's a comparable, like the same number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and similar,
Right.
yeah, and things like that.
And it's important, group, when you're doing that, that you don't exceed the standards of the market too much. So for instance, if everyone in the neighborhood has laminate countertops, you decide, you know what, I'm going to put in marble or I'm going to put in granite because that's going to be worth so much more. Well, it's going to cost you a lot more, but people are not going to pay extra for granite countertops unless you're in a granite countertop neighborhood. That's basically, it's the same people, same idea of people who say, oh, well, we're going to put in a swimming pool because that's going to increase the value of the property. Well, for most people, they say, you have a swimming pool. Yeah, yeah. Well, I won't deduct money from my offer because of it. You don't get a bump at all because if the people aren't interested in a swimming pool, it's actually literally a liability, right? Because you got a fence around it and little kids get in there, you could have big problems. So only renovate to the local standard, maybe a bit more, but don't try to, shoot the moon on that one because you'll just end up spending a lot of money and guaranteeing you'll never recover that on a sale. So,
Right. And I think with the after repair value too, if you do start looking, well, anywhere for that matter, but especially in the US with the amount of wholesaling that does go on, you can get good deals, but a lot of the times they inflate those after repair values and or they're not comparables or they just don't maybe not
yeah,
that
so
experienced. So,
that's a good point. When you're looking to wholesale, you're going to have an estimate of the after repair value because you need to know if this is a property worth you targeting in the first place. But any experienced purchaser of a wholesale property, they're not going to trust your numbers anyway.
right.
They're going to have their own process. But the reason why you're interested in it is just to make sure that you're going to have a market for that property after you get it under contract.
Yeah, I looked at a property today and there was a different market, but it was sent to me and the after repair value was, they just inflated it. Like they said, it was worth, well, around here it would be a good price, but like 300,000. And when I looked at the comparable, it was like a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, I think. And all the comparables that they had listed were like 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. And like it just, I don't know, wasn't the same property.
Yeah, so they're comparing a much bigger home with more B's and B's, more
Yeah.
bedrooms and bathrooms, and trying to call that a comparable. So that's a good point as well, that when you get comps, you have to read through them carefully to make sure they are truly are comps. And it's a combination of factors like bedrooms, bathrooms, but also what street are they on? Because as you said earlier, if it's 2 streets over, it could be in a war zone. And the fact it has the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms doesn't really do it for you, right? So, uh,
Interesting learning for sure.
yeah, Sam was asking, you mentioned a wholesale course. You wanted to know the name of that, or I suppose who you took it from.
That was in with Mike Wolf, Mastery. So, and then he had a wholesale challenge within that. It was a weekly, um, couple hours a week, I think. It was Cal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Cal did that. So Aaron and I think that's where we met, right? Aaron was through
Yeah.
Mike Wolf's, and we're both students of his. And he's been investing in real estate pretty much. I think he bought 2 houses in Calgary, where he's from, 30 years ago. But everything else, all his investments have been in the US. So if you're
Yeah,
interested in looking at that further, there's the the link for Mike's website. And next
there are quite a
question.
few different ones. If you did want to look up something that's free, and it's amazing value, is
Sure.
Zach and Rick Ginn, Ginn. They have a wholesale, I think it's Wholesale University. It's free. They have a ton of stuff on YouTube that you can, if you're interested in it. The value that you get for free is incredible, really.
Yeah, so yeah, I think you just go to YouTube and you look these guys up.
Yeah, and if you look them up, I think they have a,
Right? Zach and Rick, I think you said.
yeah,
Yeah, so look up on YouTube. Okay. And the next question was, do you market specifically in, I suppose, Kansas City area or whichever area you're looking at, or is it more just general looking for deals wherever?
with my paid marketing, I was targeting with the Facebook ads, because that's what I was doing.
Right.
You could do a radius around the Kansas City 30 or 50-mile radius, I think. So I was just targeting that area, and then in my Facebook group, and you can do those pay-per-click ones too. And I think you can target more with those Google searches, because Facebook has been, they've got more criteria and stipulations that you can't target as much.
Yeah, they got religion somehow.
Yeah.
I suspect they were threatened with being regulated by the US Congress. So they decided to back off because before you could drill down to how much education, high school,
Yeah.
college, master's degree, PhD, men, women, this age group, that age group, which city they lived in, what their income level was. I mean, you could get so specific. Now, as you got more and more targeted, the ad cost actually went up. But the trade-off is you're getting people that, at least you think, match your
Yeah.
target market far more tightly. Whereas if you go with the cheaper generic target ad, it's going to hit everybody. And through another coach, his line is with targeted ads, 80% of the people won't want to buy. 15% will buy maybe down the road if you have a system to keep in contact with them. And 5% of the people actually want to buy what you have to sell now. So you're only dealing with a small percentage of the public to start with, which is why people target ads, because they want to get it up from that 5% and increase their success rate by targeting people who are extremely tightly defined to match their ideal customer. So, all right, I think that's all the ones in the chat. So if anyone has any other questions, please just unmute yourself and ask them live. Well, see, Aaron, you did such a good job explaining everything. They have no questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys, I was trying to find the mute button. I thought this is very informative and tremendous value, even in a session like this. But I always believe in paying for true mentorship or coaching, and that's really where the value comes in. And that was one of my questions: is did you actually have somebody walk you through your first deal together, like handhold you through that process, or were you left to your own devices?
It's kind of left to my own devices in some ways. Not really. I guess we had the course, and then yeah, I had people that we could follow up with that were in the course. So I wasn't left. Cal was great. Yeah, there
Yeah.
was hand holding that went on. For sure. Actually, I'm trying to think back to the very first one because it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when you did your first deal. I think you said it was the Sarnia property and who you're working with, but the way the coaching I've taken in terms of real estate per se, all of them would make themselves available to answer questions by email at least. So if you get stuck in anything, they'll be happy to help you get unstuck. So that's been my experience, at least. I can't speak for Aaron completely because he's had coaches I haven't. So, but let's put it this way: the good ones make themselves available. But Sam's quite right. You do pay for that, right? It's not for free. And now I don't work for free either. Aaron knows that very well. I don't work for free because we all have to keep ourselves in pasta and sauce, as I like to say, and whatever field you're working in. Well, even volunteer work, people are often getting paid, right? Just not by the people that they're servicing or serving. So
Yeah, any of the coaches I've had have been great that way, and a lot of it was just actually doing it and then figuring it out as you kind of went along. And anything major that I needed or legal stuff, I just was able to reach out if I needed to.
yeah, a good attorney, good lawyer, depending on what side of the border you're working on, makes all the difference in the world. One of our coaches introduces his lawyer when he does a webinar, similar to this. Here's the man that keeps me out of jail. So this is a guy that's done, I think, $30 million of transactions just in the last 2 years because he wasn't in real estate in any big way until the pandemic, because the pandemic killed his speaking business. And that can be very, very useful, getting you over those tricky areas where you can get into trouble. Just get a reliable attorney to help you through those, and things will become more clear, as Aaron can certainly attest to, as you start doing them, because you have to really be able to understand it to do it. You can sort of sit there and nod your head at a webinar. Oh yeah, I get that. But as I said, just with my tax work, it's one thing to know what the policy is and where they're going with it, but to actually fill out the form, they never give you that line by line instruction. So you have to get a guide, and I have I don't know, about a 1,200-page guidebook sitting on my floor here that tells me how to fill out a corporate tax return. So, but that's not produced by the government, right? It's a third-party resource. So I think that's the point, is get some training, have some coaching available, start doing deals at whatever type of deal you're looking to start with, and just know you're never going to know everything. But as long as you have someone to call upon, I think that gives you more confidence. At least certainly gives me more confidence to be able to do a deal. And
I think with the coaching and the mentorship, at least the groups I've been in, it's been really helpful with the other people in the groups as well.
yeah,
Really
that's a
rely on
good
them
point, because
as
a lot of the students will want to help you, even something to, oh, well, that's actually not too far from where I live. I can take the pictures for you. Or some of them will actually want to invest with you. Or some of them will be able to refer you to a lawyer and a CPA, property manager in that area because they've used them themselves. So that's right. Your peers, so to speak, can be a good source of referrals to the professionals you need to get your real estate deals taken down.
And is there a reason why you selected the US versus staying in Sarnia, or did you just because you were working with your coach or your mentor, and he mentioned that he invests in a certain area or a certain market? Is that why you just decided to move into the States? And if
Well,
so, then how different is it um, by wholesaling in the United States versus in Canada?
I haven't done any wholesaling in Canada.
Oh, you haven't. Oh, okay.
Did any wholesaling at all until I took that one um, course that I wasn't even going to take. So it was just in Mike's group. And but as far as going to the US, I just started to, like I said earlier, just with the numbers here and the price of properties and then the rental, the rents that we were getting just didn't seem to be making that much sense for me. And so I started looking in the States and different areas and just hot markets and looking them up and the price point to get in, like you saw there, and like you're not going to get a lot like that. It's appreciated as well, but you can get houses for $50,000. I was like, what? And then so the price point to get in, and then the return on investment I found was better, and the cash flow was better. The appreciation might not have been as much, but it was still appreciating. And the Freedom of Information Act compared to the Privacy of Information Act, as far as being able to get all that information to find those deals, and just made it easier.
And on the difference in the prices, it's important to realize that, let's say you have 500,000 to invest, that might get you one property not in Toronto. You'd have to go pretty far out from Toronto, but that might get you one property, where, as you said, that could get you 10 houses in the States. So you're not locking up all your cash in one deal, right? You're able to do multiple deals and get as Aaron was saying, similar, better returns with a much lower cash outlays. So,
And also, if you're doing any buy and holds, there's landlord friendly states as well, compared to Ontario anyway.
yeah, Ontario's not landlord friendly, that's for sure.
And also just looking, but obviously it's a huge country and it varies state to state, like New York, California. Those markets have appreciated, I guess, similar probably to here. So, and they're not landlord friendly either. So there's certain areas that are better than others to invest. So I haven't even looked at those areas really.
Yeah, so avoid the coasts, right? For the most part, you ever get a professional tenant like Aaron had, they could essentially live in your property a year rent free. And I certainly couldn't carry a property with zero income for a year without running up a massive debt that you may not be able to ever, certainly in this market, ever recover from, right? So I make 30 grand gross on the condo I rent out right now. That's a huge amount to recover, right? If I had to go for a year without any income,
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be possible, except the only thing that would save me is the appreciation. Maybe.
That's a good thing about here. It's appreciation over the last few years has been incredible. But,
all right. So we're about an hour and 10 minutes into the call at this point. Sam, did you have anything else, or?
No, that was it. I just wanted to say thank you to both you guys for putting this on. Again, I think there's tremendous value in just having a networking session like this. So I just want to thank you guys again for putting this on, and thank you for your time.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and thanks again to Aaron for sharing his experiences with us. I admire Aaron because he takes action, and I don't think he claims to know everything about real estate, but that doesn't stop them from getting involved. And wholesale, people need to understand, is relatively risk-free, because for the most part, ignoring the fairly rare double close situation, you never actually own the property, because you're essentially selling your piece of paper that says you can buy the property. You're selling the right to buy the property to someone else. I think that's technically what you're doing. And
Yeah.
that gives you the ability to get in there, maybe learn some things with minimal risk. There's no such thing as no risk, but certainly a lot less risk to, say, buying a house unseen, no conditions. Like I had a client do in Ontario, and $30,000 of mold remediation later, they, I think, realized that waiving the property inspection probably not the way to go, regardless of how hot the market is. So I don't think,
Yeah, it's pretty low risk, really, I think, but.
yeah, it is.
Risk and everything, like you said, but even with the contracts and putting in the. Right, we're the contract for the inspection period, so like any earnest money or that or initial deposit that you have to put down. I always have it, it's due after the inspection period, and no one's ever questioned me on that. I think maybe one person. So you don't even have to put any money out to start. Like today, when I closed on that, he's the guy that the buyer has to put in non-refundable earnest money. So I just have to make sure that it would be above what I had put in, if I had put in any, but I didn't put any in because the inspection period wasn't done. So.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Thanks again. And we hope everyone will be able to join us again next month. Again, it'll be on the 29th, I believe is the date. Yes, the 29th of September. Talking about mindset. So.
Is it Cal's coming on, you said?
Yes, Cal's coming on to do that.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure I'm going to be making it because I may be stuck in Europe. I don't trust the flights to get back, but we'll make arrangements to have it go off without me if I can't make it back in time. So thanks again, everybody, and hope to see you next time. Bye now.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.